Looks like we're live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to
Good.
Final Project Week. How's it going, Dan?
Good. How about yourself, Cody?
Good, good. I think we're waiting on Al to join us. Let me turn off my YouTube so I don't hear myself talking in the background. And cool. Yeah, so today we're going to be going through what the final projects are for Alchemy University. So the final projects, if you weren't in Alpha Hall yesterday, are going to be what you need to submit in order to receive an Alchemy University certification. And so what that project entails, what you need to submit, what the deadlines are. We're going to go over all of that during this live stream today, and we'll open it up for like any questions you guys have. We'll give you some tips on like what we think some good projects are, and show you maybe even walk through some demos. But yeah, just really use this time to answer any questions you guys have before you start working on your projects. With that, Dan, I guess, do we want to just open up the document and kind of like walk through that, or what are
Yeah,
you thinking?
let's go ahead and go for it. I mean, first I'll ask you, Cody, like a question. What's your favorite part about the final projects?
Sure. Yeah, I would say my favorite part about the final projects is just kind of seeing all the different projects that come out of it. It's always interesting to me that even if someone builds a project that like we've seen before, like let's say it's an NFT marketplace, or some sort of token, there's always like a spin that people tend to put on it, like from their own background, or something you haven't thought of before that's a bit unique, and tends to allow me to like look at the industry a bit differently. So that's what I like the most about the projects, is it just gives me a lot of ideas for like things that could be built better, or excited to see some of these students build out their projects as well.
Have you seen? So we've done final projects historically with the Chain Shot Bootcamp for years in the past, and final projects have worked really well. Cody, have you seen final projects like help people find jobs in the space, and has that been like a really good stepping stone for people?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think what some of the most, um, I guess, the students that have kind of done the best out of like this type of program, right? They've kind of built an MVP for their project, and then taken that to like a hackathon right afterwards. And then what they wind up doing is they wind up winning that hackathon in some regard, right? Whether it's like prizes, or a small amount of prizes, large amount of prizes. But what it does is it really gets their name out in front of the entire community, the ecosystem, gives them a platform to talk, showcase their skills. So I definitely recommend, even after this, going to a hackathon. But this is kind of like a mini hackathon, and we're going to do our best here to kind of make sure that we showcase students that do a really good job. We have a lot of like ideas in place for like, how we can highlight you as a person, as a developer, and really just make sure that your Web3 developer portfolio, as you come to build it, is able to be highlighted through Alchemy University and the stuff that you're doing here.
Awesome. Aren't you going to ask me my favorite part of final projects?
Yeah, I'll ask you yours as well. Sorry. You can see we plan this, right?
My favorite part of the final projects is actually learning from the students, learning from people who have gone through the course, because oftentimes like we find that we put out all this content and it's helpful for people, and they go through it and they understand it, and then they're able to like build and deploy smart contracts, they're able to test smart contracts, they're able to build web applications that interact with smart contracts. And that's all really exciting. And that's stuff that we can teach you. But oftentimes, what's really exciting about the final projects is people taking their life experience and combining that in the project in some unique way that shows us something new, that gets us excited and teaches us something. That has happened so many times in the past. We've seen so many amazing projects that have completely blown us away. So I think like having this opportunity to showcase your skills and to show that off to the community is something that's super, super exciting to me. So I really love this final project. We really want to highlight you guys. So when you come up with an awesome project, we're going to take an opportunity to sort of showcase that to the community. So make sure that you submit your final projects, and we're going to, we're going to be looking through them. We're super excited to see how that all turns out.
Awesome.
Cool. I guess I can go through the final project document. We want to go through these.
Yeah, I think that that's probably a good next step, is just kind of walk through the document. So this document is now live on Alchemy University. So you'll find it under week 8. Do you want to present? You're presenting. Cool.
Yep.
So yeah, you'll find it under week 8, AU certification.
You can see me now?
I can
my
see,
screen?
yeah, I can see the screen. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, you guys have a new week 8 unlocked. If you refresh the page, you'll see this now here. Surprise, there's a week 8. We didn't have the week 8 there before, but now you will see it. What you'll need to do is you'll need to go down to week 8, go to the final project guidelines, and this is going to be the guidelines for the project. Momentarily, let me just make sure that that is going out. Give me a second here.
Technical difficulties. Whoa. We probably didn't hit the deploy button.
Yeah, that's probably it there. Final project guidelines.
In the meantime, how's everyone else doing? Anything exciting going on in today or this week for everyone in the chat here?
Okay, let me go ahead and share there. So part of our deployment process is making sure that we publish content to production, and that was not done here. So apologize if you guys saw a white screen there. Cool. So now if you come back here to this, you'll actually see that the guidelines are published. So we do have this out here. This guideline, we try to make it very flexible to what you're trying to accomplish. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so that we can kind of like talk through it. So, first off, from the very top, like, why do we have a final project? I mean, Cody, do you want to like talk about why we have a final project? You kind of mentioned this before, but maybe there's a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. Let me just make sure I have it pulled up on my side. That way I'm not reading off of another screen. Yeah, I mean, why we have a final project? It's really so for us, right? It's our way of determining, like, did you actually learn what we tried to teach you in the boot camp, right? Like, it really always comes down to, in my opinion, software development, not really about like, where you went to school or what your credentials are. It's really what you can do, right? So that's why a final project here makes the most sense for us in terms of like determining, like, can you do Ethereum development? Do you understand how to write test cases? Do you understand how to deploy to a test net, right? You could tell me all you want, but until I see a deployed application, it's hard to tell, if that's truthful or not. In addition to like how deeply you understand those concepts, right? Like something to consider with like these final projects as well. And we'll dive into this, but I've kind of seen it before where people might like go on Open Zeppelin, take an ERC20 contract, like make a few changes and be like, hey, here's my final project. That is not a final project. That's really just you making a few adjustments. And you really want to push yourself during these final projects to really test what you learn, to see if you can build something great, because like I said, we're going to give out certifications to people that submit projects that meet the requirements. But ultimately, this is going to be on your resume, and it's going to reflect you as a developer. So really, we're just trying to give you guys a framework to build a really good project and get you going here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, like, we're going to be taking a look at your projects, and we want. Oh, is
sorry.
Alan here?
Didn't mean to break off you there. I just wanted to bring in Al. Al
hey,
just
Al.
went.
So I'll direct some questions towards Al as well. Al, we're just going over the final project guideline. We just talked about why a final project. So yeah, exactly what Cody said. We want to make sure that you can apply the skills and things that you learned in the boot camp. I mean, it's one thing to pass all the tutorials and to pass all the challenges and to, take all the guidelines and be able to make all the unit test cases pass. But then it's another thing to be able to apply that project, right? And the skills that you're using to apply, or the skills that you're applying to build a project, are going to be what you're going to use to then, actually build new smart contract protocols and applications within the ecosystem. So we want to see that you can demonstrate these skills. So if you want to get a certificate, you will have to go through this admission process. Yeah, like Cody mentioned, it's possible that you could create a submission that could sort of fool us into thinking that like you did something really unique and clever versus something that you may have just picked up from somewhere else. But at the end of the day, these certificates, the videos and the submission that you have is going to be attached to something that we're building, which is going to be your portfolio of your projects that you want to show off to other people to be able to say, hey, this is me. I am building a project and this represents my ability to be able to contribute to the ecosystem. So you want to build something unique that really demonstrates your skills, right? So that's really important here. Really push yourself on the final project. This is your opportunity to shine.
It,
oh, yeah.
Sorry, Dan. No. Just to riff on what you say, skills, exactly, yes, but also something that we want to see is some projects that I see win at hackathons don't win purely on technical skill, but just purely on like ideation, creativity, ingenuity of like use cases. And like, they're not like the best, like most, fastest React based build projects. Like they don't have like the purest front ends or like cleanest CSS, but the use case, the problem identified, and the solution that is brought forth by the project is really great. So that's a huge element we're trying to look for too. How creative is your solution to a problem that you identify in the real world? The technical skills will always be something that you can reinforce, but have you been actually living out in the real world and trying to make it better? And have you been taking Alchemy University with an eye out into real world use cases, kind of with an eye here and an eye there, thinking, maybe this applies here and there. That's, I think, where kind of the next Facebook and Twitter and Microsoft will come from. Technical skills will get you there as well, but I think it's kind of like a two-horse race or whatever.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great point, Al. I mean, this kind of dovetails really nicely into the second point of the final project guidelines here as well. We have a number of different things that you can submit for a final project. There's like, just like what Al was talking about, we have a bunch of different types of things that you can submit here. We wanted to keep this pretty flexible, right? So you have the ability to create a full stack dApp. So if you're somebody who has front end web application development skills, or you want to pair up with somebody who has front-end development skills and you want to be the smart contract development, we highly encourage people teaming up to create full stack dApps, but that doesn't necessarily have to be your project. Your project could just be a smart contract that demonstrates its functionality through a bunch of custom unit tests, or maybe it's a front end for an existing smart contract. So maybe a really cool thing about the ecosystem is you could have like the Aave protocol, and Aave has a front end, right, that most users use Aave through, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the only front end, right? You could build your own front end to Aave, or maybe it's a front end to Aave and other protocols, right? You can create the front end that then interacts with other existing smart contracts, and that's also an acceptable final project here. You can also conduct research and analysis. So some really awesome projects that we've seen are MEV and arbitrage research. So understanding how this works and being able to like take a look at, okay, let me take a look at MEV. Let me see like where MEV is arising, or maybe let me try to build my own MEV bot. That might be a really cool final project for you to go about. And if you understand Ethers.js from some of the content that we've gone over, you have the skills to be able to submit a bundle to a Flashbots bundler and be able to say like, here's my bundle of transactions that I want executed, and actually be able to take advantage of these opportunities. And then finally, build an open source tool. So Al, maybe I'll hand this over to you. Why do we have so much flexibility here for the final project? Why do we offer up so many different types of final projects that we allow people to do?
Yeah, I mean, historically, right? Historically, we've seen students do better with kind of these open-ended kind of guidelines because, Alchemy University is a kind of a global effort, and saying that a final project should just be like one, smart contract or something isn't really like the most accessible way to formulate it. Maybe someone has taken Alchemy University thinking they want to build a full stack dApp. Maybe someone wants to just do smart contracts. Maybe, as you said, maybe someone is just like a really great front-end developer and they took Alchemy University and they exposed themselves to Web3 knowledge via Alchemy University. And now they're going to apply their front-end skills to, create a kick-ass interface for an existing smart contract already deployed out there, right? And that can be their final project. So historically, we've seen like a lot of success from like these open-ended guidelines that just like, this is what you can do. And these are just like a few, right? It's very probable that in AU, we will see a lot of submissions that fall outside of these that still adhere to, I think we'll cover it, right? In like point number 3, like adhere to the objectives of the final project. And maybe we can even transition into it, Dan, if you think that's appropriate.
Yeah, I just have one more final question I wanted to pose to Cody before we jump into 3 there is, Cody, for as far as like the career side of things, like after somebody finishes this content, like what kind of jobs have you seen people land? Are people mostly going into full stack development? Are they doing smart contract development? Like, where do you see like sort of the breakdown? Because what Al mentioned here, which is the reason why I'm posing the question, is the reason why we have so many different final projects is because there's so many different career paths that you can go down, right? You might be somebody who is a web developer, or you might be somebody who's more focused on smart contract functionality, right?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting in the Web3 space. And it really depends on the company that you're kind of going for and the position that you're going for. I think overall, like even if you're not looking for a super technical role, understanding like the technical side of like what you've learned in AU is super beneficial. Just for being able to like interact with your team in Web3. It's a very just technical field in general, right? Like everyone is most people are programmers, and when you're not, you kind of need to get up to speed with like what the nomenclature and vocabulary is around like smart contracts and gas and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, we've seen, coming out of the course, obviously smart contract developers, if you're someone that has Web 2 experience, you're an experienced developer, you've worked professionally for a few years, it should be pretty easy for you to like find a full stack developer role at a Web3 company, right? They're looking for people that understand Web3 development, as well as like a pure blockchain role where you're, something that, we'll just be transparent about, if you're looking to become a blockchain developer at someplace like Uniswap or Alchemy, you're probably going to need a few more years of experience, at least a minimum of like 1 year experience working on blockchain applications. And that's really just because if you think about it, it's like, you're a lot of the times you're handling millions of dollars worth of value, right? And so like it's fair to have that needed experience. The cool thing though is like you're probably like, well, where the heck do I get that experience? So you can actually get that experience in a bunch of ways. One is like doing hackathons, right? Building out your own projects, participating in like grants. There's a lot of like grants out there through like Gitcoin grants and freelance opportunities. I really recommend going into something like Raid Guild or Deorg or any of the other decentralized freelance DAOs, basically. And what they allow you to do is kind of like touch different areas within Web3, right? So whether it's like NFTs, gaming, DeFi, you kind of work as this freelancer through this organization. So and they'll vet you through the ways that they do that. But you don't have to commit to a specific company. You can kind of work within this organization, and they have a ton of work coming to them all the time. And so it's kind of a cool avenue to take, I think, is going down the freelance route. We've also seen people just land in like pure front end roles. I've seen that a lot. If you know front end and now like Ethers.js or Alchemy SDK, that's a great role that a lot of people are looking for is front end. I'm sure there's a lot more that I'm missing here, but Yeah, happy to, if you're looking for a specific role, feel free to like hit me up in Discord. And we can figure out like what makes the most sense, and how we can kind of leverage what you've learned in AU to help point you in the right direction.
Yeah. You should absolutely take Cody up on that. He's a wealth of information in terms of all of everything that he just spoke about. So yeah, thanks for sharing all of that, Cody. And yeah, we can go ahead and transition into the objective of the final project here. And Al, I know that you wanted to go ahead and talk about this. What should the final project be demonstrating for folks that are completing the final project here?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously we're called a university, right? So we are a course in the sense that we try to follow a sort of academic rigoric structure. Like we've taught, or we've developed a curriculum that's about 7 weeks worth of a bunch of content. And it would kind of like be a little whack to just be like, all right, then that's it. Like, hope you learned it. Like, hope you liked it. Like, no, like now it's your turn to show us like how you spent your time over the 7 weeks. Like, it's your turn to show like a legacy for those 7 weeks of your time, of your effort, of your brain power, of the community that you built. All of that time that you invested, you can show tangibly through a final project. So we've kind of like boiled it down into 2 main points that the final project should kind of demonstrate. And it kind of like, hopefully it boils down into what I just said, which is number 1, a deep understanding of like the buildup of the curriculum, of the core curriculum of the AU Ethereum Developer Bootcamp. The AU Ethereum Developer Bootcamp covers about 7 weeks worth of like Ethereum heavy concepts in like a on-ramp, like a linear on-ramp of like starting at basic cryptographic fundamentals, moving on to like what is a blockchain, what is blockchain security, blockchain network, what is Ethereum, what is Solidity, and it like on-ramps slowly. And by week 7, you're like, deploying upgradable smart contracts, like interacting with like production level smart contracts, like all these things, right? So the goal is like, show us what you got. Number 1 is like, show us that you actually engaged with the content at a critical level. So build a final project that demonstrates that your time at AU was worth it, right? So that is one, which ties into number 2. The final project ideally is something that you'll be able to like slap onto your developer portfolio and like have there for life. Very similar to like any type of diploma, right? You finish any type of course ever, or you finish any type of upskilling, certification, whatever, and you get a certificate, and that certificate you hold for life, right? And for life, you are certified in that skill. So in a similar sense, because you are getting certified with this final project, we want you guys to build something that is, that you are able to hold up and say like, hey guys, my name is Al, I'm a developer. If you want to know more about me, check out my project. This is what I built, and this is how I built it. You can learn more about me just by looking at my final project. So ideally, it serves as like an insight to you as a developer portfolio. Cody, did you have any thoughts on that, by the way?
No, I think that's good. Yeah, no, great points, Al. The only, I guess, question I have is like, do I have to say like my name is Al and I'm certified when I put that on my portfolio?
No, like you can say your name is Dragon if you want, if that's what you mean.
Yes, I'm joking with you.
Okay. No.
All right. Yeah. Let's say we move through this document here. I'm sure people want to see a little bit more of what's going on.
So let's go ahead and talk about the final submission requirements. I can go over this pretty quickly. We are going to be talking about this more in the Discord, and we'll be distributing more information as time goes along. You can't submit the project right away. We are going to open submissions as of next week, but you have 3 weeks to do the submissions. So I'm just going to talk about the requirements here. They're pretty high level. The 2 things that we really need from you is the project submission details. For the project submission details, we're going to have you fill out the project name, the description, who your team is, all the relevant links and sources like your GitHub repository and all of that. And then the second thing that we really need from you is a 90-second video. 90-second video is going to go over your project and a demo if there is a demo. So our suggested flow is to kind of give like a quick elevator pitch, right? So the idea behind an elevator pitch is you can say your project in such a quick sentence that you could tell somebody on the elevator, right? So you want to be able to perform that in like 30 seconds and then just do a quick demo, right, with the remainder of the time. We realize that 90 seconds is a really short period of time to be able to show a video or to show your whole project, but try to condense and put as much in there as you can, and then fill in all the rest of the details within the project description and on the GitHub repository from that point. We make these videos quick and shareable so that we can review them quickly, so that we can make sure that your project is something that fills these requirements, and it also becomes something that you can share quickly to people when you want to show off your final project there. Cool. Any other points that you guys want to make on the submission requirements, Cody?
Yeah, a quick comment on it. And I think it's covered at the latter part of this document, but just to nip it in the butt now, the deadline is 3 weeks from now for projects that want to be considered for presentation to the community, right? So that's the deadline we're setting for you guys, give you guys a goal to get something out quick. And we're going to go through those projects, give prizes out to the best projects, and also create an event that showcases what you've built. Not everyone, but the people that we're gonna choose. There's gonna be tons of good projects, but we're just gonna go in and pick a few of them and give you a stage to present on. If you're in like the second week, like Taylor Yang is saying, he's only in the second week, it's completely fine. Just continue working through as necessary. We're going to be having events throughout the year. So, if you want to present then, there'll be opportunities, even if you don't hit one of these events, to like connect with the community and like figure out next steps. So don't worry about all that. This is mainly just for like, again, we're still in beta. You guys are our early access participants. And so we're testing out a few different things, see what works, and, giving you guys the opportunity to get in front of the community. So yeah, don't worry about it.
Great. Okay, let me go through the rest of these points and then we can jump into Q&A because I'm sure we're getting a lot of questions on the stream. So let me go ahead and just finish a couple of these things here. So we do have a bunch of recommended resources that we have you check out. We have some starter code that you would have found in the curriculum. So you could totally use these things as your starter code. You can build off of the decentralized escrow. You can build off the ERC20 indexer, the NFT indexer. Those are all great starting points for your project. So if you want to start there, you can build on top of them. A question that we often get is like, okay, how much do I have to build on top of these in order to satisfy the requirements of the project? And that is something of a subjective sort of requirement. Like we said, this is going to be something that you can showcase, that you can show off forever, right? So you want to make this project something that you are showcasing your unique skills and abilities. So obviously, like, we're not going to accept you just taking the decentralized escrow dApp and submitting it. You got to show that you were able to extend it and to create some custom unique functionality on there. That is going to be a bit of a subjective guideline, but something that I think you can kind of be a judge of for yourself. But these are definitely excellent starter resources, things that you can take a look at. We also have some front-end resources. We highly recommend using React. It's the most popular JavaScript front-end library, but you can use other libraries as well, Vue and Svelte, and all these other ones are totally acceptable. But if you want something that has the best resources around it, just because it's gotten so popular, React is a really good choice here. We also recommend Vite.
Can you reload, Dan? Sorry.
Okay. We also have Vite here. Vite, we recommend this as a build environment. It's similar to Create React Apps if you've ever used that before, but it's a more modern version of Create React App. And it's just very easy to get a React project up and running, and you don't have to worry about any other details within the build system. And when you want to actually do custom stuff within the build system, Vite has a robust ecosystem of plugins that you can just plug and play within Vite. So we find it to be not only super fast to get started with Vite, but it gets out of your way really quickly. And then when you need it to do custom stuff, you can find that stuff on the web. So we highly recommend Vite. And then Chakra UI, if you are not familiar with front-end development, Chakra UI is a really great just component library for being able to build a front end really, really quickly. So if you're just trying to bootstrap something and you just want a web application that looks nice and performs well and is accessible across all the different ways that people consume web applications, Chakra UI is a really great resource to use there. But again, you can use whatever you're used to. If you're more used to the Material UI, or if you're more used to Tailwinds, or whatever you happen to use on the front end, these are just recommended resources if you're somebody who's new to web application development, but please use the stack that you are comfortable with. Also check out our Web3 resources and community resources. These are going to be really helpful in just extending the front end application to then build some Web3 functionality on top of all of this. And definitely jump into the Discord, because not only can you ask Cody more questions about what he was talking about earlier, but you can leverage me and Al. You can leverage the rest of the community. You can also find teams. So we created a Discord channel for you to be able to find other team members. We recommend highly that you find a team. If you're somebody who's like, I could probably get a project done super quick just by myself and just get it done, and you're just thinking about it that way, I would recommend you sort of look internally a little bit more and think about how you can grow more by working with other people. And you could get a better experience that way. And it also keeps you accountable by having other people that want to create a big project together. And you can form some really great relationships there. So we recommend taking a look at the Final Project Teams channel, finding other people that have similar interests to you, and building a project together, because we think that that is the best experience. So definitely take a look at that channel, build a team and build something awesome. We've seen many teams in the past go on to win hackathons and to build companies out of the Change Out Bootcamp. So who knows, you might be finding your future coworkers in the Final Project Teams channel. So definitely.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. One additional point on just working with teams I just want to point out real quick is that, like Dan said, you might be like, oh, I have this one idea and I just want to do this. In addition to the networking opportunity, it also tests you as like what you know, right? Because they always say, like, if you can teach, like, you understand that concept very deeply, right? And I think it's just a great opportunity for you to like kind of check what you do know, check what you need to look into a little bit more. Working with someone else and helping them solve through their problems, or vice versa, is just it's a great way to just pick out what you need to learn and what you need to dive into.
Yeah, that's a extremely good point. Yeah, there's nothing that helps you find your gaps in knowledge better than trying to explain something to someone, right? Because if you can't explain it to somebody, you don't really fully understand something. And oftentimes while you're explaining it to somebody, it starts to sink into you and you form, better neural pathways for being able to understand a concept that otherwise you wouldn't have formed. So yeah, definitely helps you grow yourself, build a better project, and just better experience all around. Highly recommend it. Cool. We've also compiled a bunch of demos here. Al, do you have like some favorite projects? Do you have a favorite? These are some awesome projects that have been presented over the last couple of years in the Chain Shop Bootcamp. They just kept, something that was amazing to us in the Chain Shop Bootcamp is that the projects kept getting better and better. So if you take a look at like the most recent projects, you're going to see some really amazing projects. And we recommend you take a look at those as sort of the bar for what kind of projects you should be submitting. Don't get intimidated by these, but this is sort of the stuff that you can build too, right? Like if you've gone through the content, you find a teammate who can complement your skills, I am fully confident that you can build some amazing stuff, like some of the stuff that you'll find in here. All of these projects have videos with somebody demonstrating the project in long form. So they really go through the project in a much longer time frame. So I would check these out and find some really, really awesome projects in here. Cool. Is there anything you wanted to highlight there, Al, in terms of projects, things that you wanted to point out?
I was trying to flip through them real quick. There was one that was, I know we all remember it, but I don't remember the name. It was an escrow based, maybe it was Airblock. It was an escrow based like rental. It was basically a Web3 Airbnb. So what this student did was put an escrow smart contract and had that escrow smart contract do what Airbnb, the Web2 company, does. What does Airbnb, the Web2 company, do? And I'll explain it in like 15 seconds to not take too long. They just stand in the middle of a buyer, a person seeking to, take vacation in some place, and a seller, a person that has a place and wants to sell that place off a couple of weeks a year. And, Airbnb protects both parties in case the seller is like actually not advertising the right place, and protects the buyer from the seller, or the seller from the buyer in case, the buyer doesn't pay the seller. So that's all Airbnb does. But this guy put a smart contract in the middle and programmed in the conditions so that is all automated, and basically presented that as a final project that he built in a couple of weeks. And that just blew me away. I know you guys remember that project, but I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the one that we're focused on here, Airblock. And I do remember there's been I think 5 or 6 projects that were really stellar projects that just built upon the decentralized escrow. There's a reason we showed that as the first project. It's a really good building block to actually be able to build projects on top of it. There's a lot of cases where you need some third party to approve something, and being able to do that through a smart contract can really open you up to a whole set of new functionality. For example, for something like Airbnb, right? Why don't you, when you're renting an Airbnb that is 6 months, a year, multiple years from now, what's stopping you from being able to earn interest while that money's in escrow, right? Half the time you have to put up a portion of the money up front, but that money doesn't earn any sort of interest in the meantime, right? But if you had something that was a smart contract, you could easily tie into these money markets that would allow you to earn some sort of an interest on the smart contract.
Yeah, the money earns interest, right? We're just not the ones benefiting from it. Airbnb is.
I'd imagine, yeah, they must be doing that, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to it too, because you're cutting out the third party, which is Airbnb, which take a huge cut from both the buyer and the seller. And then you're adding all these programmable finance features like Dan mentions, which is not only do they take a huge cut for the service they provide as a middleman, but for that service they provide, they still don't give you access to, cool things to do with that money in the middle. Like Dan says, the smart contract can hold money for you. Yeah, a smart contract can hold money, and that's cool. But you can add features, you can program in features to make it cooler, such as the smart contract not only holds the money, but holds it in a Aave deposit pool that earns interest for both the buyer and the seller, or for the seller or for the buyer, lowering fees, whatever, right? It's whatever you want it to be. But there's just so much you can do with a smart contract, really.
I think, yeah, some of the best projects are definitely taking a Web2 idea and implementing it in Web3. And I think that they're the best for kind of 2 reasons. One, because you can look at it in a different way and in a more fair way to how consumers actually interact with a product like that in a service. And the second is because I think what a lot of these experiments tend to do is you can also realize that Web3 might not be the answer for every problem out there, which I think is very humbling thing to understand as you're going into Web3. It's we're a very new space, and so we're experimenting a lot, but not everything needs to be Web3ified. And I think it's good when we realize that and take these kind of take these kind of chances and do experiments like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's something that you'll see as well if you take a look at some of these projects. Is over time, I mean, the ecosystem has been looking at different sort of buckets of projects that the ecosystem gets excited about at that particular time, right? Like if you look at this month, I'm even thinking about that in terms of like the soulbound tokens. Soulbound tokens is something that got really popular, especially around June of last year. This idea that you can have a token that is associated to your address, right? And becomes something that is like something that you can't transfer, right? And there's a whole bunch of use cases that you can think of for tokens that don't transfer, being able to like provide some sort of an attribute to someone, maybe like a Web3 certification, right? Or maybe it's a sort of like a portfolio that someone builds up over time, or maybe it's items that, give you some sort of a digital experience or access to something in a video game, right? All of these things are totally possible with SBTs. And I think that now something that's really interesting to take a look into is really two areas that are really exciting in the space at the moment is social. There's a lot of things that are happening in the world of social, especially like if you take a look at Lens Protocol is doing some really, really cool stuff there. And then gaming. Gaming is something that is coming down the peg with just like a whole bunch of new projects. And I would take a look at those two sort of areas for new projects that could be created and to sort of get ahead of the curve here with some new stuff that you can build. Cool. Prizes. We're going to be announcing prizes within the next few weeks. So just know that they will be coming out. And you want to create a good project for your own benefit anyway. But on top of that, we will also be announcing some really cool prizes. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be sending it out through emails and through Discord as well. So keep and Twitter as well. So keep all those channels open, and you'll be hearing more about the prizes. Last thing that we mentioned earlier is this idea of final project submissions. You can submit a final project all the way up until February 9th. They'll be made available as of next week, and then we will be certifying by February 14th. So if you want to get into this batch of certifications, make sure you do that. And then we can also take those projects and highlight them to community. We are going to be reaching out to specific projects to try to help you onboard into the ecosystem much, much quicker. So if you want to use this as sort of an accelerator to actually build out a project that you've been dreaming of, that's something we'd love to see in this space. So super exciting stuff. Let me touch on two more things, and then we'll take some questions and see if Al and Cody want to add on anything more here. Two more things that I want to touch on. One more resource that we should definitely add into the final project document as well is check out the Road to Web3. I know a lot of you have already gone through this series, but this is a great series of videos and projects that you can use to build your final project. Just like we were talking about the final project starter projects that you have within the curriculum, you have a whole bunch of projects here that you can build on top of, right? So take these tutorials, build something unique on top of them, and then you could totally submit that as your final project. That is 100% acceptable. And yeah, please do check this out, because it's not only like a great way to start your project, but it's also just a wealth of information in terms of building Web3 projects. So check that out. And the last thing I want to touch on is if you are looking to find teams, I did post this in here, right? We talked about this idea of going to the Final Projects team channel in Discord. If you pull that up, you will find...
It is linked then.
Yeah, I don't know whether it would just go right over, but yeah, it'll link you hopefully directly to it. You will find in here Final Projects channel, and you can create your own post inside of this forum here. I have an example project here where, let's see if we can pull this one up, where I talked about a project that you guys are more than welcome to actually build on top of. So if you want to take this project and you want to create it yourselves, please do. This is something that I've wanted to see more of. I think that there's not enough projects out there that are accepting stablecoins as payment. So I would love to see more stablecoin payment gateways out there. So somebody just messaged in. Oh yeah, there's Al. So you can totally use this as a project, and we are going to be building a starter project that you can start here and be able to extend this even further. So it looks like there's already some discourse around this. It seems like people are really excited about this idea, And if you have an exciting idea, come in here to the Final Project Teams channel, create a post. You can use the template that I created here, this same template, to say like what the name of your project is going to be. Maybe you don't have a name yet, but you have maybe like an idea of a name, and you have a description, and you want to get more input from other people. That's totally fine if you want to do that too. Let other people know how many teammates you're looking for and what kind of help you need, right? If you're somebody who is a designer, there's plenty of people out there that I'm sure can help you with the front end development and can help you with the smart contract development and server and database development, whatever you need. So let people know what skills you're looking for, because that's going to help you find teammates that can help complement your skills. And then you can build a really, really awesome project from there. Because we don't expect that anyone is going to have the full skill set to be able to build out these projects, right? Like, any project within, the classic Web 2 space is difficult enough to build a web application that's a client server plus database. But when you add like a blockchain into that, then it just takes the level of complexity and expands it so much more, to the point where, you want to find people who have complementary skill sets so you can really build on top of each other's. Cool. All right. So is there anything, Cody or Al, that you guys wanted to add to that before we should take some questions?
I'll just add a reinsurance note overall for the folks who are here and are like, oh my God, like I'm not technical and I don't know how to code just yet, but I'm really interested. I just want to shout out Krishang and Sasha, who I both personally know, who were 0% technical, and then they dove into the curriculum and came out rock star, like researchers first. So they don't have a technical background. Krishang does, but they now work at companies as like the brain people behind these concepts. They're not like the engineers. They are just like so well founded in these concepts that they are just super valuable to Web 2 and Web 3 companies alike. So don't feel like code and technical is a huge blocker to the space. Learn the concepts, feel yourself super grounded in them. And if you feel like that's your calling, go for that route, because others have gone for that route very successfully. Just a quick note.
Yeah, and Krishang and Sasha, for instance, if you guys are familiar with some of the companies in the Web3 space, they both respectively work at Third Web and Gelato. So very respectable companies and projects with very big teams. So
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Shout out Krishang and Sasha. Great folks.
Sweet. Do we have any questions? Anyone from the channel, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and post them now. We're happy to take some. And yeah, and also feel free to ping us in the Discord when you have questions, and we're happy to answer them there as well.
Yeah.
Something that we want to highlight, and I think we've done, is we've had such, we've been heads down a little bit too much with the content side of things, that we just haven't spent as much time as we'd like in the Discord. So that will have to definitely change. So you'll definitely see us more around. Tag us and shoot us messages. Let us know what you're thinking. Give us feedback. Tell us how your day is going. I'll just highlight that next to last question by Andre. They're asking, do you have to complete AU ETH Bootcamp to submit a project? I'm about halfway through, but have to take some Solidity courses prior and would love to participate in this. Cody?
You want me to answer this?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a good question. It's something that we're still like, to be completely transparent, like thinking, what's up?
Can you highlight it in the bottom? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. It's something we're kind of thinking through. The current thought there is that, yes, you do need to complete the entire course. because, you know, it just kind of makes sense from a perspective of like, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that move through the space, you know, trying to get NFTs and like, you know, spamming things. And we're trying to really get rid of that. And we want our certification, though, even though we're saying that the final project is really the cream of the crop here, we do want the certification to hold some value to you guys. And like, there's only multiple ways that we can do that when we're getting thousands of projects in a day. And one of those ways is to force completion of the content. And so we'll be rolling out like differing initiatives over the course of this year of like what that means, you know, like tracking the amount of times people use solutions, how long it took them to get through the content, and all of that will eventually feed into like who actually gets certified and who doesn't. And obviously there'll be ways to work around that. But ultimately, I believe we'll be starting with, you do need to finish the ETH Bootcamp. And you know, on the topic of like, you've taken some other Solidity courses before, that's awesome. We do believe that there's usually some concepts that people skip over from the other courses out there, and that we find important in terms of like where we're putting our certification, like the types of things that we're covering. So, you know, that's our mentality behind it, is that, you know, if you're going to be certified, you should be going through all of the content in terms of the way that we taught it.
Yeah, something I want to highlight from what Cody said too is that like, if you get the certification, you want it to hold value, right? You want it to say a certain thing about you. So like, somebody can look at this certification and know that this person understands these concepts, right? Which may qualify you to work at a specific company or work on a particular project or involve yourself in some way with a project, with a DAO, something like that. So yeah, we do want to hold everyone to a certain standard for sure. Cool. Question that came in. Do you have to complete, oh wait, same question. Re-highlighted it. Cool. I do see another question that says, can the member be out of Alchemy? Actually, I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you can rephrase the question, I'd be happy to answer that one. The team member is somebody from Alchemy, or yeah, there's a number of ways to interpret that if you want to rephrase it, Fazal. Max number of members on a team. You guys are more than welcome to have as many people on a team as you want. I mean, we're going to cap that off at some point. Like, you can't have 12 people on your team. Like, you know, anything more than 5 is kind of ridiculous. If you have like a really good reason why you want to have 6 people on a team, I'm not going to fight you on it, but like, each person should have their own contribution. Really, I mean, teams of 3 and teams of 4 is going to be the optimal, right? You don't really want to extend beyond that, because then it becomes really difficult for people to contribute. I don't know if you guys have done this before in like schools where you have like group projects, but there always is like somebody who just can't find a way to contribute, you know, can't figure out a way to like get involved. And we don't want to have that here. So you want to make sure that everyone is involved in some capacity. So max number of teams, you know, or max number of people on a team. We're not going to set a specific number here, but we should be making sure that everyone's contributing, and yeah, you know, not 12.
I also just want to shout out the solo hackers. You don't have to be part of a team. Lots of people find success solo hacking, and that's completely fine. So on the flip side, for teams, there's a lot of pros. You have to learn how to navigate, and when you work as part of a team, that communicates stuff to the outer world, right? You learn to work as part of a broader group. You learn to handle project management skills, project communication. You know, all these cool things that still make you, you know, cool to the outer world are part of being, you know, part of a team. But yeah, shout out to the solo hackers.
Cool. Another question here. What if your project is not good enough to qualify for a certificate? Will you be able to resubmit another better project? Of course. You know, we're not trying to gatekeep people here in terms of getting into Web3. We're just trying to provide the best educational service and make sure that you guys can feel proud of that certificate, feel proud of that project, and feel proud to be a part of the Alchemy University ecosystem and community. So yeah, 100% you'll be able to resubmit. Let's see, our old pal Nico here. Nico is a prior ChainShot graduate. He's been with the Alchemy University community from the start. Super intelligent guy, and yeah, big contributor to the Web3 space. Definitely, you should catch him in the Discord. He's great conversation and has a lot of knowledge.
He's the best.
Now that we have become rock stars in 3 weeks. Oh, okay. Whoops. I thought that was a question. It's just him praising.
Oh, it's a total call out.
Here's another one. I missed the first half of the presentation. Where can I find the recording and watch the first half? All of our recordings are going to be on YouTube. So if you go to our Alchemy University YouTube channel, you can find it under the live session. There'll be like recordings there. So you can look back at all of the stuff we've done for AU so far. How do teams deal with the IP? It's a good question. Anyone want to take that?
I'd refer to Nico on this one.
Yeah,
he might have the best answer on this one. I don't really know in this question. I would say I would advise you, if you have a project that you really want to continue on and that you're worried about like IP and like somebody else using the project and some of the ideas that you have, don't use it as the hackathon project. Build it on your own. Find the people that you want to work with long term and work with those people to build out the project that you are planning to build. I would not if you have this burning idea and something that you want to work on for the next 10 years of your life, don't just find some random person to work on it with and just start working with them on it. Save that as the back of your pocket idea and just do something for the final project that demonstrates your skills and gives you the opportunity to work with other people. I have no legal advice.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I wouldn't worry about it too much unless you're in that camp that Dan just described. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to like if you have your first line of code written on GitHub that is before someone else that copies it. I mean, at least in the United States, I believe you have the legal right to that. But yeah, I would consult a lawyer there. I don't think any of us really know it too much about IP. IP is intellectual property. I see that Prem said. It seems like my comments on StreamYard are a little bit desynced from YouTube, so I'm taking a look at YouTube here.
One thing I'll mention, obligatory mention, and I know we're running short on time here, but for final projects, we are, if applicable, if your project has code, we'd love to see it and we'd love the public to see it. So we are asking, as part of the project submission form, that you submit a GitHub link. Obligatory note, be very careful with sensitive variables. Use .env. At this point, you've learned .env a bunch throughout the curriculum, but obligatory note, be very careful with private keys. Make sure you're always using testnet wallets, testnet browsers, sandbox browsers, test private keys. Make sure you're always on Gurley if you're using Ethereum. Test everything. The only case where you'd be using production is if you've used testnet 1,000 times before, right? So test private keys, everything. Make sure your wallet for your final project is called test final project wallet or whatever. Obligatory note.
Yeah, there's two things on that are common gotchas from what Al just talked about that I want to highlight. I mean, you guys should know this from the digital signatures portion of the curriculum, but the same private key that you use for testnet generates the same address on the mainnet, right? They're both EVM compatible networks. They're going to generate the same address, private key. The translation is the exact same. So don't export a private key on a testnet thinking that it's just controlling your testnet address. It also controls your mainnet address, right? So try to separate that out as much as possible. And then the second thing is, if you're using hard hat, be careful when you run hard hat node, the accounts that are generated, and they do specify this, they shout it out. The accounts that are generated there are all deterministically generated. So the same 20 accounts that you get are the same 20 accounts that I get. So don't use those private keys. I shouldn't laugh because unfortunately people have. And if you take a look at those addresses there, you will actually see that they often send money to them on the mainnet. And that money is going to get pulled out immediately because we all know those private keys, they're exposed. So yeah, be really, really careful there.
On that note, I will highlight a student. I won't mention his name, but I know his name. I'm just saying it's anecdotal. He accidentally, he was using .env, but his .gitignore did not pick up .env. So he pushed up the .env file to his public GitHub repo. And unfortunately, what scammers do is they set up listeners on GitHub servers that immediately drain any public keys that are pushed to GitHub repos. So this student, as soon as he pushed the private key, containing a small amount, fortunately, of mainnet funds, they were instantly drained. So be extra careful. And as Dan mentions, the private key for a testnet is the same as mainnet. So that's why label your wallet or your address a testnet address. So that way you're using a test address across all networks, right? So yeah.
That's great advice, guys. Definitely does not feel good to be burned, especially the first time. Cool. Last question here. And then if you guys have any closing remarks, can I jump straight into Ethereum development, or should I take JavaScript fundamentals first? It kind of depends on what your background is. We've seen people that, have a very expansive background in programming and can kind of like understand JavaScript enough where they can make it through the course and jump into Solidity. The reason why we recommend JavaScript fundamentals is because you'll be using JavaScript on multiple fronts throughout the Ethereum Developer Bootcamp. Specifically in the first few weeks when we're talking about fundamentals around cryptography, Merkle trees, and some of the basic structures around blockchain, we'll be using JavaScript to establish those concepts. And then you'll also be using JavaScript with like Alchemy SDK on the front end to interact with your smart contracts and check them. So definitely super important to understand JavaScript, at least in the stack that we teach here at Alchemy University.
Yeah. That's not to say that you couldn't be successful as like a smart contract developer using just Foundry and just writing your unit test cases in Solidity itself. You could totally be successful and go down a career path that way. But we find a lot of people, are going to be going down career paths that involve JavaScript in some sense, because JavaScript is everywhere at this point. You'll find it on the server. You'll find it on the client, of course, because it's the the language of the browser. So we recommend having that strong background in JavaScript before going into the bootcamp, and it expects it. It's something that is expected for the bootcamp. I do have one closing remark that I'll mention here, which is a little bit of final project submission alpha. We are going to be looking for final projects that are way above the bar, and there's a lot of avenues that you can go down that we can help you explore. If we see those projects that are amazing and have potential to continue on and to grow, or just people demonstrating skills that show that they are rock stars in the space. So there's a lot of people here on this call and a lot of people in the community on the Alchemy team that will be taking a look at these projects, and this is just a really great way to showcase your skills and to showcase the project that you're trying to build. So I'd highly recommend really investing a lot of time into it. It'll be well worth it. Even at the end of the day, if all you do is learn from the project, that's what we're all here for. So highly recommend you invest a lot of time into this and spend, really focus on building an awesome project, because you'll get out what you put in.
Yeah. Great closing remarks. Get out what you put in is my motto that I live by for everyone that ever wants to get into programming or Web3 or really do anything in life. So that's a great way to end this. Cool. Well, yeah, thank you, Dan, Al, and everyone else that joined today with your excellent questions. Again, join us in Discord if you have any questions about the final project. We'll be in there. Meet up with teams, start building, and get ready for kick-ass project in 3 weeks. We're ready. So thanks again, guys, and have a great week.
Happy building,
Thanks, everybody.
guys.
Bye.